What's up, bud? It's not bad. It's not horrible, but it's not great. I think it goes as low as like 80 or 85. Talking about bells on Animal Crossing. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Let's get the bot online. Make sure he's online. Are you online? Bot, where are you? The bot is not working. Who knows? We'll get him working. Don't worry. How's it going, everybody? Happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well. Got stuck on the handshake to Twitch. Let's try it again. Come on, Twitch bot. Hey, sorry for starting a little bit late today. Trying to help my youngest kid buy his first online game and trying to get it set up on Windows and stuff on another machine, and I lost track of time. So apologies for that. But hope you're doing well. Let me turn my mic up a little bit. It's a little quiet. It's gonna be that one. Let's check my mic. Hello. Nope. Let's turn that one up. That's a little better. Let's try this one. Input. Yes, that is my input. How do I change the volume of said input? Why does Windows make things so hard? Some days I really miss working on a Mac. There we go. That's better. Hey, now you can all hear me. Unfortunately for you. Get some extra light going. There we go. All right, well, welcome to the stream. My TV didn't turn on, just a sec. There we go. All right. Technical difficulties all over the place today. What's going on with that? All right. No real agenda today. I was going to go through some Q&A. Didn't have anything new come in on Discord, but I do have... Hey, Juggling Biohazards, good to see you. Waving at the popcorn. That was fun. So Friday, Loyal Moses in his channel was trying to use the laser engraver to pop popcorn and ended up just like drilling a hole into the popcorn kernel, which is a lot of fun to watch, but very, very random for sure. But good to see you, Juggling. Hope you're doing good. How's your weekend been? What you been up to? I'm trying to get my bot online. For some reason, my bot does not want to start. Why doesn't my bot want to start? Do I need to let me resource source my shell environment again. See if that makes a difference. I think I changed one of the credentials. Maybe that stopped it from working. But it should be working okay, because I didn't think I changed anything in the bot itself. No, let's do a git status on there. No, apparently I did change something in there. So git add-p id 736 bot. What did I change in there? All I changed was one of the existing commands. Trying to add a new one for lurking. It shouldn't have broke anything. It looks like it just doesn't want to connect to Twitch today for some reason. So it should be announcing itself that it is online, and I'm not seeing that announcement come online. Very strange, very strange. Doing well, just catching up with JavaScript. Just installed a Windows subsystem and want to tinker with NeoVim soon. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm running all my bot stuff in Windows subsystem for Linux on my Windows machine that I do all my OBS stuff and my streaming from. But for some reason, it doesn't want to start right now. Curious. Catching up with JavaScript. So what kinds of things are you doing in JavaScript? Like, have you been doing development, or are you just learning development? Like, where are you at in your tech journey? Always curious to hear where folks are at. Hey, for all the other viewers joining in, hello, I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of this website, techinterview.guide. just here chatting with folks about kind of their tech journey and offering like career prep advice, interview advice. It doesn't have to be specific to the tech industry. A lot of the advice that I do give on the channel is pretty generic when it comes to building out a resume and being able to answer like the age-old question, like tell me about yourself, why should we hire you, things like that. So I've been in the industry for about 26 years. I've been a hiring manager. I've been director level roles, everything in between. And so I've got thoughts, opinions, advice, perspective that I enjoy sharing. It's up to you if you want to take the advice, but I'm just here to help people out and kind of offer my take on things. So feel free to drop questions in chat kind of as we go. I'm trying to get my chatbot up and running and online. I guess I made some changes last night that broke it. For some reason, it doesn't want to talk to anything. Right now, I'm not getting any errors. It just doesn't want to actually connect. So I'm trying to figure out where it's sort of pausing and breaking. So we'll get that sorted in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, if you got questions, feel free to drop questions in chat. Stream Elements is taking care of the little reminder for me. Once I get the bot up and running, I will have a way for you to submit anonymous questions, but I'm not there yet, so bear with me. I need to reorganize my script a little bit. It's starting to get a little unwieldy. It's about 500 lines of code, so I need to start breaking it out into like more like Python modules to better keep track of like what the thing is actually doing and trying and so on and so on. And I may try disabling a few commands just to see if that helps get it online. But we'll give it a shot here. We'll see what's going on. Juggling Biohazard says, currently learning to use APIs. Still getting down the fundamentals of programming overall. Was into design before coding, so coding overall is a new journey. Awesome. That sounds cool. So I don't know if you knew this. I work at Postman, which is a pretty popular API testing tool. But it also does like the full gamut of like building APIs and documenting APIs and all that kind of stuff. Seth139, hey, good to see you in chat. Thanks for dropping by. Currently learning to use APIs. So consuming APIs, that's pretty cool. Consuming APIs is a really fundamental sort of thing that we do in web development, especially for front-end development, because as a front-end developer, you're building what the user sees, but you're not generally interacting directly with a database. You're calling an API to interact with a database. And so there's this whole other layer between like what you're building and the system that they need to actually access. There's like something in between there, and that's usually like an API layer of some kind. So learning how to consume those APIs and how to sort of handle their responses appropriately and things like that. It's a very important skill in web development. So that'll be a good one to like really dive into and learn about. We're using Postman a lot in Leon's class. That's awesome. That's cool. Very cool. That's the 100 devs thing, right? I gotta figure out how to get on his radar and get a raid over here. I'd love to have like 4,000 people show up to my channel sometime. That would be ridiculous, but it'd be cool to have a little bit of spotlight. But yeah, it's awesome. I think what Leon's doing and teaching that content is really fantastic, and just sharing that knowledge and letting people just join and follow along and things like that. I think it's fantastic that he's setting that up. Sethi says, I just joined now, so if anyone has good examples of references of a good new grad portfolio, could you mention them in chat? So for a portfolio, it's really going to be custom to like kind of what you want to do as a developer. And so there's no like, oh, here's how to make a perfect portfolio. The perfect portfolio is one that that sort of sets you up in a way to show how you provide value to a company. And so on the last couple of streams, I was talking about like what kinds of projects should you build, and some of the best projects are going to be things that you're passionate about, things that you care about, but the best projects are going to be things that the company cares about. Like what kinds of things could you build that is really going to stand out to the company? And some of that will dive into like company research on, what's a company like. Say I've got a company and you're interested in applying to my company. Well, what does my company do? what kinds of products do we have? Do we have an API that you could consume? Do we have a library that you could use in a project? Could you build something similar to what we do? Like, do we have like a free kind of account that you could sort of, uh, you know, sign up, make an account, use it a little bit and see what the dashboard is, and then make a project like that? Those are the kinds of things that are going to really stand out to that company. As you're researching companies, you'll also end up kind of inadvertently researching the industry at large. So I used to work at SendGrid, which is now owned by Twilio, for example. And so let's say I really wanted to go get a job at Twilio. Well, I'm going to learn everything about email and SMS and like communications and things like that, and see how their API works. I might build a project using their API, and then I'm going to go apply for a job there. And what I'm going to do in that portfolio is really highlight the projects that I built using their technology, saying, hey, this is the value that I bring. I've got all these technical skills, but I really like your product. I've been using it. I'm a user of your system. I'm not just like some new grad. Like, I'm actually like a user of your system. And I love this so much. I want to be part of the team. And it really drastically changes that introduction between you and the company. The other nice thing about that is if you don't get the job there, because you've researched that industry and you've researched communications, well, guess what? They've got lots of competition. Go start researching their competition and go apply at their competition as well. And so then you can go in and say, okay, well, how do I go get a job at Mailjet or Mailgun or Infobip or Klaviyo or whatever, like all these other companies that are doing email, SMS, live chat bots, like all this kind of stuff. Like, there are companies out there that are just focusing on these things. And so once you start researching a company and their industry and what they do, you can now go apply that knowledge to their competition and say, okay, well, how do I now go apply to a job over there? And you can use almost the exact same cover letter, almost the exact same resume. You're going to tailor the cover letter and resume a little bit for why you want to work at that specific company as opposed to some other company. So you could say, like, yeah, this project uses the Twilio API, but I'm starting to incorporate your API, and I actually like your API better, and so I'd really rather get a job with you. You can spin that wording however you like, and so it really does change the introduction of of yourself to the company when you can use their product or use their API, use something that they build in a project and build that kind of stuff into your portfolio. So it's not about like, oh, your portfolio should have one app that does this and one app that does this and one app that does this. And everybody needs to have that, because then everybody looks the same and there's no way to differentiate yourself from anybody else. And so you need to stand out on your own, where someone looks at your resume and go, oh, wow, we need to call this person. That's where you want to get to with your portfolio. So whatever your portfolio is, it needs to be tailored to you in a way that shows your value to that company that you're applying to. That would be my advice there. Hope that's helpful. Juggling Bio says, I accidentally rated someone with the class with my channel points. I wish I'd rated you instead. No worries. So yeah, I mean, I've got all kinds of like channel point redemptions you can do. I've got like hydrate and jokes and silly questions and things like that. I want to like start building it a whole bunch more once my chatbot starts working. It looks like it's getting hung up on, where is it getting hung up? Oh, it's getting hung. Oh, I know where it's getting hung up. Okay, so let me go. Yeah, that's where it's getting hung up. Okay, so let me go shut that off and go run this again. And the bot is hopefully gonna get online. Nope, still not joining online. Why not? Bot, do better. Run until complete. So, confusing this is. Why won't my bot run? Come on, bot. Tell me you're online. Come back, bot. My bot just does not want to run today. Need to give it some caffeine, I think. Well, let's just see if it's online. If I do hello. Nope. All right, well, let's see where it's getting stuck. So we have event ready. Let's do print joined channel. Nothing like debugging in production, right? No, we're not getting to the point where we're trying to log in. So let's do a print in the init, and then do another print in that init. It's not Luke. Sorry, home phone is ringing. All right, why won't this? So it's getting through the initialization. Is it getting into event ready? So print join channels. I realize none of you can see what's going on my screen. So we're not getting to the point where it's calling event ready. Show your screen to show the debugging. Okay. What's up, Carmillo? Hey, haven't seen you in ages. Hello. Yeah, let me pull this online. Let me go over to my presenting screen, and I will need to figure out how to get my VS Code in here for my Twitch chat bot. Close down some of these. I have to like fix my font size and stuff because this is going to be really tiny on your screen, I think. Or just a big black screen and you don't see anything at all. Oops, that's not what I wanted to move. I don't want my presentation. I don't want my browser. I do want VS Code. And VS Code is going to the wrong screen. I don't want my terminal window. I do, however, want my VS Code. Where's my VS Code at? There's my VS Code. Wait, where did VS Code go? All right, let's remove that and try that again. Yes. Add a window capture for VS Code. Okay, there it is. So yeah, I'll increase the font size and stuff so you can all see what's going on. Let me shrink the window this way. Increase you this way. All right, so I got all of my stuff going on here. Actually, let me open up the terminal inside here so we can see what's going on. New terminal. Debug in production. All right, so we got my terminal going. I'm in a Python virtual environment, and if I do Python 3 with my chatbot, I basically been putting some print statements in here to see like where am I at. So I'm getting through these. I thought it was getting hung up calling my dad joke app. So for some reason it's just not working anymore. Although it does load just fine, so I don't know if that was the problem. But then it goes up here to the bot initialization, which is what we call a constructor when we build a class. So it gets into this constructor, and in Python, the constructor is called _init, or double under, or dunder. Sometimes you'll hear people just refer to it as dunder init, or double under init, or just init. But it's basically saying like, what are the different channels you're going to connect to? What are some of the functions that we're running? And I've got this print1 and print2, which we're seeing in the output. So I know it's getting through the initialization. So the problem's not there. From there, it doesn't get into the event ready yet. It doesn't get into sending a message. These are just logging and output things. So the event message here is what it kicks into like once it's all ready to go. And then these are all the different commands. So hello and joke. And then I've got, this was the old hello command. This is a lurk one that I'm trying to add. Static responses for things like bang LinkedIn. We'll show you my LinkedIn when it actually works. And then I was working on like shout outs and things like that. So there is a process marker N. No, that's not it. Is it missing that whole chunk of code? So when it runs the bot, it's basically supposed to be sitting in a loop. And I'm pretty sure it is this event message loop. And basically saying if there's a message from the bot, just immediately return. Otherwise, like handle the command messages. But before it does that, it should be getting into event ready. that basically says everything's ready, you're logged in. I should be logging on my console out here that I'm logged in as my bot, and this is my bot's user ID, and then actually go join all the channels. And I'm not seeing this stuff logging. And the logger, the self.log is basically just timestamping a log for me here. That's all that's doing. G&D, yeah, apparently we're coding live today. Hey, Coding More, good to see you. Just listening in while you do some Sunday chores. Awesome. Cool, I'm trying to debug my bot in real time here. So Sethi says, I just finished my exams yesterday. Hey, congrats on exams. Those are great that you got through that. Going to start working on the points you mentioned. Yeah. So as you're researching a company that you want to work at, like, as you're finding interesting companies where you want to apply for a job, that's really what you need to sort of pay attention to is, what does the company do? How can I show my value to that company? And then go build projects aligned with that. And you're going to find multiple companies. And so the idea is when you have multiple companies that you want to apply to, then you've got the ability to kind of win them all over with, this is how I provide the value to, all of these different companies. And then you have like a very rich, varied kind of portfolio, so that you're not like building the same thing over and over and over again, because that doesn't look interesting to a company. All right, let me pull this into here, and drop game is, oh, wait, what just happened? Oh, I wasn't showing the whole presentation layer, that's why. Cool, well, I wanted to make sure you could all at least play the drop game while we're trying to debug this. Yeah, okay, drop game works. All right, so let's figure out what's going on with this bot. Why isn't this going into like startup mode? So I have it printing out like all of the different things about my Nanoleaf, and then these are the Nanoleaf themes that all of you will have access to actually go call on the panels when the bot's up and running. But this isn't helping us yet. I need to know that we're getting into this event ready. And it looks like we're not getting into here, which makes me think that it's not actually logged in. From the init. All right, so I need to go check GitHub, Twitch.io, Twitch.io. I have a feeling that maybe I deleted a piece of code I wasn't supposed to delete, so I just want to go find a quick example here. No, it's just the init, which calls super init, which we're doing. We're passing all this stuff in, and I know that it gets past that. We're sending in the initial channels. That part didn't change. And then from there, it should be going into event ready. So let's do print got into event ready. And let's try running this again. So it's not getting there, which tells me there's something about the bot that's getting hung up between trying to log into Twitch and actually saying that that it's ready to start listening. Now I did change, what did I change? I changed one of my authentication tokens, but I didn't change this authentication token. So this one should still be working just fine. So why is this not working? Let me go make sure that Redis and everything is online. So Redis, yeah, Redis is running. And that's the only database I'm using, so that shouldn't be impacting anything. And these are just static responses. So if you do like resume review, it'll like send this text back to the message. Funny greetings, these are just like little hello things. So if you do bang hello, it'll like pick one of those randomly. That was the last thing I was trying to build in here. And then otherwise it's trying to connect to Nanoleaf and like print all this stuff out. So I can suppress some of these print statements because I don't need those anymore. I got all that stuff figured out. This is just picking a random color for a Nanoleaf panel, which I'm hoping eventually will get working. Converting a timestamp to minutes and seconds. That's basically to check later on, like, you can change the panel in 3 minutes and 2 seconds kind of thing. So nothing in here really changed. Or sorry, the minutes and seconds, I added a new command called bang marker, or admin marker where I can actually set the timestamp. So on the last stream I was talking about, I want to have a Twitch bot command that I can run from my Stream Deck that says start marking when I'm asked, like when I'm starting to answer a question or doing a resume review, and then when I finish answering that question, and then keep track of all those timestamps and then dump them out at the end. So that way I can see all the timestamps, so I can go back and see like what's going on for like YouTube channel markers and things like that, as well as for the automation that I want to build that's going to like slice these longer VODs or VODs, video on demand, into like smaller pieces for YouTube and podcast audio and stuff like that. Which, good to see you. I really meant to like save that as a as a button on my Stream Deck, but my Stream Deck isn't very large. So next, speaking of larger Stream Decks, next Saturday, this coming Saturday, Loyal Moses is going to be doing like a stream of streamers, and he's basically going to be asking other streamers to raid into his channel. And when we raid into his channel, basically it's going to enter me into a giveaway to get like the Excel version of the Stream Deck. It's like $250 device. I could just buy it on my own, but if I have a chance to get one for free, I'm going to try that first. And so he's just going to have like a bunch of streamers come by and then have a way to sort of like get on his stream and say like, hi, I'm Ian. This is what I do. This is what Tech Interview Guide is. So I may be streaming for a little while on this coming Saturday. Depending on what time he's doing his stream. He's still trying to work out some of the logistics of that. But once he gets that figured out, I'm going to figure what time I'm going to be streaming on Saturday so that we can raid in and I can get into that raffle for that. So we'll see how that goes. So this makes me think that perhaps my authentication didn't work. But if it didn't work, I should have seen an authentication error come back from the bot. This section here was me trying to connect to what we call pub sub, or publish subscribe, and that's a way to get like events, like did somebody redeem channel points, or did somebody subscribe or follow me for the first time, things like that. Hey VP7, thanks for the live stream. Would like to hear your thoughts about how backend developers can get into developer relations. When I see the industry, I feel there are too many focused on front-end technologies, but not sure how to get into it. Can you share my expertise? I can share my experience. I'm happy to share my experience with that. So I've been a long-time backend developer, like most of my career. I've spent in backend. This is my second developer relations job. I work at Postman, and I would say the biggest factors that helped me get a developer relations job was focusing on how to build a community, how to build good content, and that content is a combination of blogging, live streaming, live events and workshops, things like that, and then just the education side of things and like being able to code. So, like today's stream is a good example of kind of all the above: taking care of community, working on some code, talking about content, as I'm live streaming. And a lot of those things really stand out to people who are trying to hire for developer relations. But I've mentioned on a couple of streams over the past month or two, as we've kind of gone down the road a little bit of like, what is DevRel even to companies, and like, why do they hire developer relations or developer advocates as they're sometimes called? And some companies have no idea why. They just see like, oh, our competition is hiring developer relations, so we need to do that too. And they don't even know why. And they don't even really understand what the impact is going to be, or the fact that that role is going to cost the company money instead of generate money. Like as an engineer, you're helping the company generate revenue by building software, building services, building APIs, building, things. In developer relations, we're going to conferences, and so we're costing money for conference tickets and travel and accommodations and meals and things like that, just to kind of get out and see people, meet people, build up the community. And so some companies have a hard time reconciling, like, how does this role actually, in the end, make us money? Like, what's the return on investment there? And it really comes down to, well, how are you building up your community? How are you nurturing that community to show that you care about the people that are using your product? You care about the people who are using your system or using your API. And then kind of combining the idea of education and public speaking and sometimes there can be a little bit of sales and marketing. Sometimes it can feel like a little bit of a support role because you're actually getting into code with someone else and trying to help them figure things out. Or in the case of Postman, like getting into the Postman application and showing them how to do things in Postman. And so it can be a combination of a lot of things. And so for a backend developer, when I was getting into DevRel, I had been doing a lot of online coaching and mentoring of people, and then I was actually just barely made it in there. Good job. I actually was a software teacher for 4 years, and so that made it a little bit easier to get into developer relations as well, because I could show videos of me teaching basic concepts through advanced concepts. And so that can make a big difference. So I would say if you really want to get into DevRel, start going to meetups and give lightning talks. Start publishing like open source code. Like, eventually this Twitch bot I'm probably going to put online. I mean, I've got it on GitHub now, but it's in a private repo until I get it kind of polished up. And then I'll probably like share it with the world and say like, hey, here's how I build a Twitch bot. It may not be the best Twitch bot, and it may not be the best way that this company, or this organization that put together this Twitch.io, Python library wants people to build a bot, but here's how I built a bot with it. And if you want to see it live, come hang out on my channel kind of thing. It might draw some people into the community a little bit. But for me, the idea, like the biggest thing that I really like about being in developer relations is the idea of building community, teaching one another, sharing knowledge with other people, and helping them learn and grow. As you sort of gain experience in the industry as a developer, naturally you're going to start mentoring other people in the workspace around you anyway. And so you're already kind of going to start to build up that mentorship, sort of mentor-mentee sort of teaching kind of thing. Because you're going to sit down, like people are going to approach you and say like, hey, VP7, like, how do I do this in the system? And you're like, oh yeah, cool. Let me show you how I do that. And let me show you the gotchas and like things that I've learned along the way and things like that. And so you're going to be able to share that experience with other people. Well, that's getting you prepared for a role like developer relations. Does that mean you can't get a job in DevRel if you're brand new to the industry? No, certainly not. You can get a job in DevRel. But again, we kind of break it down to these three things of like code, community, and content. And if you can show a company that you're good at two of those things, you can generally get a job doing DevRel. And then you just say like, my growth is to work on that third thing. So for me, I think I'm pretty good at the content and code and the community side. Am I great at any of those? I'm pretty good at code, except this morning trying to debug why my chatbot stopped working. But I think I do an okay job with community and public speaking and the education side of things. And I'm building out workshops so that people can, like, I'm building out workshops at Postman in a way that other people can take that and actually go teach that workshop. And so I'm building up kind of the teacher's version of the workshop where they've got like a script to follow and they know how long to spend on each section. It was basically how I would write my teaching curriculum for the school that I taught at. We would have like what the students could see, but then we also had an instructor version of this is the main theme that you want to get across. How you actually explain it is kind of up to you, but don't spend more than 5 minutes on it because you got to get to this part next, and then you want the students to explore and like go play with things and so on and so on. And so part of my role right now is I'm building a workshop that I'm about to run on May 11th at Postman. But then I also need to build that up in a way that when we do in-person events, I don't have to be the one going to every in-person event for that specific module. I want to write it in a way that anybody can take it, learn it, and then go teach that module. Because it's not scalable for me to write it and I'm the only one that can teach it, because I'd be flying all over the place to actually run it. Or I'd be flying out to at least San Francisco for the foreseeable future, where we're going to start doing these as in-person workshops as opposed to being online. So those would be my main sort of thoughts around getting into DevRel is start to focus on going to meetups, giving talks on a technical level and explaining things. And then start documenting like the meetups that you've been to and the talks that you've given. Maybe grab those slide decks and put them on like some online slide deck sharing site. And then, start building up your portfolio of open source of like, these are little projects that I've built that I gave as part of that meetup talk. You can kind of explain all those things. And then, spend time in communities, whether it's Stack Overflow, Quora, you know, any kind of online community like Discord communities and things like that, start documenting those. And then when you go apply for a DevRel job and they say, like, tell us about those 3 Cs, you've got a list of things that you can share for any of them. Say, well, these are the Discord communities that I've been in, and this is the impact that I've had. These are the open source libraries and things that I've worked in. This is some of the open source projects that I've built, how many forks and watches and whatever that I've been kind of like gaining over time. These are meetups that I've gone to. These are talks that I've given at meetups. Those things are going to like really stand out, and people are like, yes, come take a job as a developer relations or developer advocate at our company, please. And so you'll really win people over if you can show that you've got experience in those things. But again, you don't have to have a ton of experience to get a job. One of my students from Turing, where I taught, graduated and immediately got a job doing developer relations because he was social and outgoing, and he was able to show them that he was able to code, help community, like help other people around him, because he was helping classmates. And so he was able to describe that. And obviously he knew how to code because he just finished a code school program. And then it was really just, how do you come up with content? And that was kind of his weaker area. But he also does a lot of public speaking. He's kind of a performer. He does like stand-up comedy. And so he's able to like go out and talk about like how he gets up in front of people and puts together like a presentation to like go through his comedy routine or whatever. And so lots of different things that you can take into account there. So you don't have to be an expert at any of those things, but you can get started. Companies, though, especially companies that are just starting a developer relations program, they want people that have more experience in some of those areas. They want someone that can come in, learn their technology quickly, and then go out and give a talk, or learn their technology quickly and then like put together a workshop or something for other people to learn that technology. And so if the company doesn't already have a developer relations or developer advocacy group, then it's a little harder to get a job as a like being new in that kind of role. But if you can show that you've got experience in one of those 3 areas, or preferably 2 of those 3 areas, you'll find it's going to be a lot easier to convince them to give you that job. But if the company does have a big team, then you might have an easier time getting in as like, hey, I've just graduated, or I've just finished this coding program, but I've been doing public speaking for a while, and I've been doing, YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and show them samples of how you present material. And like I say on the channel quite a lot, like if you can demonstrate your value to the company, it makes it a lot easier for them to want to hire you. All right, so let's get back to our bot here. Let's figure out what's going on. So we're not getting into this event ready. So when I look at kind of their quick start example, all it has is the super init, where you pass in that token, you give it a prefix, and that's basically how you're starting the command. In this case, I'm using the bang operator, the exclamation point, and then the list of channels that we're joining. That list of channels is basically my channel and my work channel. But for some reason, it's not actually starting up. Oops. I'm in my virtual environment, so I know it's loading all the libraries. Otherwise, it would be complaining about not loading certain Python libraries. But we're just not getting to this print statement. We know that it's finishing this, but it's not getting into here. Now, the fact that this is an asynchronous method means it's actually waiting to trigger this. So there's something under the hood, excuse me, where it's trying to log in and trying to see, like, is everything done? Am I logged in? Have I joined those channels properly? Or actually, no, we haven't even joined the channels properly. We're just trying to log in at this point. And once that works, then it sort of like creates this event that says, hey, we're ready. So similar to your browser, when you load up a web page, once the browser actually loads all of the HTML and then parses that and goes, okay, I need this CSS file and I need this image and blah, 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 and it finishes rendering everything, it fires an event called document ready. And that's where in JavaScript, you can watch for that event and say, okay, well, now that I get that document ready event, I can go trigger like all these other things to happen, where like maybe you're pulling in background content or Ajax calls and things like that, doing other fetches and things for ads and blah, blah, blah. And so it's watching for this document.ready event to go, make other things happen. And the bot is working kind of in a similar way. It's trying to call this initialization code up here that says, hey, actually go log in. Once you're logged in and everything's settled and everything looks good from Twitch's point of view for this library code, then go make this event ready thing happen. And because this code is like fashioned in this way, it should be getting into here as soon as it's sort of ready. Something broke in here. Something's not working in here. Juggling Biohazard says, incredible info, thanks for that. I often hear networking and being personable is more important than coding. That's something definitely to work on. So networking and being personable is absolutely helpful, especially for finding the first job in tech. I often tell people that networking is probably going to find you your first job faster than just blasting out a bunch of resumes to a bunch of companies. If you just blast resumes and cover letters out there, it turns into a numbers game. But if you can connect with people and say like, hey, you work at that company, I would like to apply at that company. Can I get to know you and find out what it's like to work there and ask you some specific questions? And then when I apply, can I ask you to talk to HR on my behalf? That's kind of the sequence of how that would work out. You'll find you're going to get a job much faster. In my experience, it gets you a job much, much faster than just what we call spraying and praying, right? You're just spraying your resume out there and praying that somebody notices it. If you have someone in a company say your name, like if I got to know Juggling and, you know, I submit the resume for them, now Juggling Biohazard has somebody in the company going to HR saying, hey, I've been talking to this person, they're looking for a job, do we have any kind of openings? Now they've got someone in the company vouching for you and saying like, you know, I don't know them incredibly well, but I've been chatting with them a little bit. They're looking for a developer job. Here's the resume. Like, what can we do? You're going to find you're going to get more phone calls from HR teams and recruiters than just blasting your resume out there. It will absolutely help. And so networking is scary. And I've talked about this recently on the stream, like cold networking, like where you don't know somebody and you're reaching out for the very first time and be like, hi, what's it like to work there? Can be scary. And so what you need to do is come up with very specific questions that you want to ask and give them those ahead of time. And so if, you know, let's say I work for a company where Zooey wants to go work. Hey, Zooey, good to see you. And Zooey says, well, I want to reach out to Ian, but I don't know Ian. I don't really know the company. As you're researching the company, you're going to find information about what does the company do? Who are their customers? Like, how do they spend their time? What kind of tech stack do they use? And you want to kind of keep track of all this stuff in a spreadsheet. And then anytime there's a gap that you can't find information, like how big is the company? How many employees do they have? How many employees are in engineering? What's their diversity like? You know, like what are the things that are important to you? Like, what do you want to know about that company? And start listing that stuff in a spreadsheet. And anytime there's a gap, now you have a specific question that you can ask that Zooey could ask me when he reaches out to me for the first time saying like, hey, Ian, I'm really interested in working for Acme Inc. I see that you've been working there for a year according to LinkedIn. I've got some specific questions I'd like to ask about the company because I'm researching it as a potential job. Do you have 10 minutes for a Zoom call, or would you mind just answering these offline? And give them the questions ahead of time. Now, when they go in and they make that phone call to you, they've already been thinking about those questions. And if not, you know, or if they don't want to do a Zoom call or they don't have time for a Zoom call, they're going to probably take time to like answer those questions briefly over an email. And so bringing specific questions makes that first phone call a lot less scary. But when you're just like, hi, Ian, I'm Zooey. I'd like to get on a Zoom call and talk to you about your job. It's like, why? Like, are you just going to hit me up to apply for a job? Like, is that all you're trying to get out of this? Or do you have like something specific that you want to know? And I kind of put it out there that if you have specific questions, you're far more likely to get people to respond. And especially if you give them the choice of, do you want to do a Zoom call or do you want to answer these offline? You're going to get a lot more response. You're going to get way more people responding to say like, hey, you know what, I haven't got time for a Zoom call, but here's some quick answers. Thank them for their time. Say, that's awesome. That's amazing. Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Find someone else at the company to reach out to and say like, hey, I got some specific questions. Ask them the same questions and see if the answers are the same. I mean, that's one way to do it too. And I often tell people, reach out to a recruiter, reach out to a peer level person at the company. So if you're an entry level, find someone else that's entry level. If you're senior, find someone else that's senior, and then find someone that's more senior than you. So if you're entry level, just literally go find any other senior developer. If you are a senior developer, see if you can find like a staff developer, principal, architect, like someone in those upper ranges of roles, and reach out to them and ask them your very specific questions. Keep it to like 2 questions, 3 at the most. But send them the question ahead of time. Say, these are the things that I'd like to ask if you've got time for a call. And if not, if you could take a minute and answer them offline, I'd really appreciate it. Some people will be like, you know what, a phone call is going to be faster. So let's just get on a phone call instead of me typing this stuff out. But I think giving them the choice, I think is going to be heavily appreciated. And you're going to find that as you connect with them that way, and they know that you're willing to be considerate about how to get them to answer these questions and so on, you're going to find they're going to be much more responsive to future questions. Now, if you're trying to apply for a job at that company like right away, time's kind of the essence. And so you need them to respond right away. And so you might need to reach out to like 2 or 3 people, ask them the same questions and hope that you get some of those answers back, or you get Zoom calls set up right away. You could put something in the email saying like, hey, it's Sunday. I want to apply for a job there by Friday. Do you have time for a phone call like by Wednesday? That gives them a couple of days to say like, oh, you know what, Monday's busy, Tuesday maybe, Wednesday, yeah, I could do Wednesday. Or you know what, Monday's actually going to be pretty relaxed. Let me call you Monday. Give them an option, but you could let them know in the email, but you don't want to be like super high pressure about it. Otherwise you're going to turn them off. If you say like, hey, I want to apply for a job there tomorrow, can we get on a Zoom call? It's like, well, I may not even be checking my email on a Sunday. So, you're going to have to play that one by ear. And so if it's an urgent kind of thing, you can give them a window and say, I want to apply by Friday. Do you have time before Friday to get on a phone call? But ideally, you'd be researching these companies ahead of time before you even apply. And if it's a big enough company, they're going to have lots of roles all the time. Smaller companies, they're only going to have a couple of roles. And so time is going to be a lot more important when you're trying to apply for a job at a smaller company. So that would be my take. But networking is definitely going to get you a job much faster than just blind applying. Going back to chat here. G&D asks, wouldn't that person feel used? I mean, yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the point of having LinkedIn, is that you want to build up a network of people. And so, yeah, it can be like, hey, can you just submit that resume? It's like, all right, But if I've got a referral program at my company, it's like, you know what? If you get that job, I get $500 or I get $1,000, or some companies are like $5,000, $10,000. I've talked about that on the stream. It's expensive to hire somebody. It can cost $10,000 to $30,000 to hire somebody new at a company, because it takes a long time to post that job and review all those resumes and make lots of phone calls and do lots of interviews just to find the one person to fill that one role. It's expensive. And so a company's like, you know what, if we can save all that time and save all that effort, and instead of spending $30,000, I can give G&D a bonus for, $5,000, all the better. Community subs, Juggling Biohazards, I appreciate the gift subs. Thank you so much. Please know that all of the subscriber money is going into, kind of that collective pool that I talk about a lot. And actually, you just bumped me over the $100 threshold for Twitch. So thank you for that. I'll get my first payment from Twitch. I'm pooling all of that money and I'm giving it away to groups who have diversity in tech as their primary mission. Not just like, hey, we run this code school and it would be great if, we can help diversity. I'm going to be giving this money specifically to groups and companies who are promoting diversity in tech. So I appreciate the gift subs very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I don't really run ads on the site anyway, but this will definitely help out a handful of folks that come to the channel initially and they got to like sit through that ad. That's also why I have like the 5-minute starting soon or 4 minutes starting soon, is just to get through all those ads so that you're not missing out on the first couple of minutes of the stream. But I really appreciate the gift subs. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, like anybody that wants to help contribute to that. Eventually I do want like subscribers and people to gift subs. I want you to own these panels on the wall in some way. I haven't yet figured out how to keep an animation running and let, Juggling Biohazards own this particular light. And so you can set that to like the color of your chat name or like some other color. I haven't figured that part out while keeping the rest of the animation going. But in the meantime, if you would like, you can DM me like some sort of picture or logo or something like that, and I will 3D print it and I will hang it over. So pick a number from 1 to 43, and that will be yours. And so this one here is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it basically follows the trail, kind of up and around and up and around. And the one up here in the top corner is number 43. So pick a number from 1 to 43 and DM me a logo that you want me to hang on your tile, and I will 3D print it and I will hang that on your tile, and that will be your tile. So I appreciate that. So people that help me out in this effort, I want to promote diversity in tech. So anybody that can help me in that regard, you're going to get some way of either controlling these tiles, or at least getting a logo of something that you care about on there. It could be Spider-Man, it could be a code school, like whatever that logo is. Let me know what you want on that tile. So send me a whisper on Twitch. Let me know what panel number you want. I do recommend something like, between 1 and probably 25 or so, or maybe up to 30. I'll let you count, but basically, I'm blocking several tiles just standing here. And so I eventually want to turn the camera a little bit to where you can still see me and see all the tiles on the wall, so that I'm not covering up your tile with my fat head. But yeah, send me a whisper with a logo that you'd like on there, as well as a tile number. And I will get that 3D printed this week. And so hopefully by Thursday, your tile will be hanging on there. So, appreciate everything I do. I appreciate that. You want number 13. All right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So yours is going to be this tile. So that's number 13 right here. So it's going to be right next to my head. So this will be your tile. That's number 13. So if that's the one you want, then that one will be for you. All right. Let me write that down. The other thing I could do is just 3D print your username, or JBH or something like that, and hang that on there. The problem is those things are kind of far away. And so the logo is going to have to be decently sized. Those squares are 6 inches square. And so the logo has to be a decent size that it's actually going to fit in a 6-inch diamond. Dealing biohazards is number 13. Cool. So yeah, DM me a logo and I will figure out how to 3D print it this week, and put it up there just as a cool little silhouette. So cool. All right. Where was I? We were talking about cold networking and outreaching. Hopefully that helped. So G&D was asking, aren't they going to feel used? But that is kind of the point of putting yourself out there to network. And so I would say, if you're genuinely getting to know somebody, hey, I really do want to get to know you and what you do with the company and what your impact is, then it does come across very differently. But that first email is always going to be kind of, hey, I want something from you. But see if there's a way that you can reciprocate back to them and say hey, I'm really looking to make an impact in tech, and I appreciate your time. If there's anything I can do to pay you back for that time, or if you have the means, send them a $5 Starbucks card or something. You can do that kind of thing. But if you're looking for your first job in tech, you're not going to have that kind of disposable income. But find a way to show gratitude to them, and say can I pay it forward in some way to someone else, and get their take on it. Whip says, I plan to start making content, but I want to do it under a new identity. Do you think it's better to have a username that's based off of your own name, or something that uses tech words? That's a good question. My worry about using tech words, if you say JavaScript, expert or something like that. A, are you really an expert? But B, what if you decide not to do JavaScript? Now you got to change your username again. So for me, I've been using Ian Douglas 736 for years and years and years. Going on, 2002, 2003. So gosh, 20 years I've been using this handle. And the 736 is a shout out to my wife, because that's how we met online. I was on a dating website and I was just trying to register Ian Douglas everywhere. And this one website threw random numbers on the end so that everybody technically got a unique username. So if there were multiple Ian Douglases, there might have been an Ian Douglas 312, and Ian Douglas 736, and Ian Douglas 999, whatever. Um, and uh, and so I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm Ian Douglas 736. And that dating website was starting to kind of get some traction. I was meeting some people, and then I went over to another website, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to keep using that same username. It's unique. I know that no one else is going to have an Ian Douglas 736 name, and so I started using that, and that's how my wife found me on Match.com, and we connected through there, and we met for coffee at a Starbucks, and we've been together ever since. That was 2003. So yeah, it's been a minute that we've been together. We've been married now for 2005, so it'll be 17 years this fall that we've been married. So yeah, so I keep the Ian Douglas 736 just as a shout out to my wife, and she also uses the 736 on some of her usernames as well. As kind of a shout out back at me. So for me, I try to use Ian Douglas 736 as many places as I can. There are a few platforms where I'm still just Ian Douglas, like GitHub, I'm just Ian Douglas. But Twitch, Twitter, Linktree, LinkedIn, I'm just Ian Douglas 736, as many places as I can. And if I'm gaming, I use my gaming handle. And if it's, so I vary it a little bit. But if it's something that's going to be professional work related, I try to use Ian Douglas or Ian Douglas 736. So I base it off my name. Even though legally I'm William Douglas, Ian is my middle name. So legally I could be like Will Douglas, and I'm starting to use that one in more places, and starting to use like Will Douglas 736. It varies. It varies depending on kind of the personality that you want to project. I see a lot of people in developer relations use like fun little handles. It's something memorable. Like my manager at work, her Twitter handle is Petunia Gray. Her name is nothing similar to any of those words. Like Petunia is a flower and gray is a color, and that's her Twitter handle. And so everybody's a little bit different. It's just, how do you want to be memorable? That's really what it comes down to, like, building up that personal brand and things like that. I'm way behind on chat here, so bear with me. Zooey says, the people I reached out to understand how hard it is to land their first job, so they're more than willing to help. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey VP says, thanks. Excited to know you come from a backend engineering role. That was detailed. I've been contributing to some open source. Awesome. I'll start working on building content and demo. All the best. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, come hang out anytime. Like, never ever be afraid to ask questions. I tell people all the time, like, ask questions in chat. Part of this chatbot is I want to build this exclamation point anon, where you can get instructions on how to whisper to the bot, and then the bot will post in chat like, hey, we had an anonymous question come in. As soon as I get my bot figured out, I'll figure out like how to fix it and get that back online so people can actually ask questions anonymously. That way I don't have to keep looking at like LinkedIn and Twitter and Quora and like all these platforms that I'm on where people whisper and send me DMs. I can just say, like, you know what, can you come over here and just send a whisper to the bot, and the bot is going to post that in chat once the bot's online. The bot will get all these whisper events and start like posting those. But I got to fix the bot first. Ultimately, what I would love to happen is to have the bot post them on Discord anonymously, because I do have a Discord channel, and I can't pull up that link very handily because the bot's not working. So let me just copy and paste it out of here for now. If you want to join us on Discord, you can go over to this link. Will I make a language translator bot for the chat? Probably not. No, I'm not very good at building translators because grammar and syntax is a tricky thing. And so I typically stream in English and speak in English. It would be tricky and probably confusing to have like some sort of translation bot. So if I get this bot to a point where I've got Discord connected to it as well, I could make like an alternate language channel, and then as chat messages come in, have the bot translated and post that in that appropriate Discord channel. That could be one potential idea. If you want to like join the Discord and like throw that in general chat just as a reminder for me, That could be like an idea to extend this out, because I do want to connect the Twitch and Discord communities together. So if you ask a question here, it gets posted in Discord, or if you DM, the bot, it's going to like post on the Discord. I have a channel in there for anonymous questions that the bot can like post them in there. So I do want to have a way to set that up just so people are comfortable knowing you can ask me a question where your name's not attached. Because some people are a little fearful about, asking a question and like, am I going to look silly if I ask this kind of question? It's like, for me, no, but I get it if you're not feeling confident about even asking a question and having your name attached to it. If you do send me a whisper on Twitch or send me a message on LinkedIn, Twitter, Quora, all those platforms, if you send me a direct message, I will answer you there. I may also copy your question into Discord and address it later on a different stream where I say, hey, I had an anonymous question come in. This is what it was, but I'm never going to say your name because I want people to feel comfortable asking questions. I'm here to help. And so if I can find a way of making it easier for you to ask those questions, I will do so. I've also thought about putting a form online where you can ask an anonymous question and have that kind of flow through the bot or flow into Discord. Like I'm trying to find as many ways as I can to let you ask anonymous questions, but also filtering for spam and links and things like that I don't want, showing up and I have no way of tracking who sent it. So I do want to pay attention to that kind of stuff, but I want to make this community a place where people are comfortable coming in and asking questions. I also want to line up a guest for May, but May's turning into a really busy month at work. So I don't know whether I'm going to get a guest on the stream in May. There's at least one, potentially 2 days that I will not be streaming. And I know for sure May 12th is a Thursday and I won't be streaming that day because it's my birthday. And I won't be streaming that day. And then I think the following week I'm doing a local meetup. And so I won't be streaming on the following week. I think the 19th. The 19th is GlueCon. And then I think the following week I'm actually doing a meetup. That one's on the 23rd though. So I should be fine that week. So there are at least two Thursdays in May that I won't be streaming. I may try to find an alternate evening if I can to stream because I like being here for the community. And then in June, I'm going to be doing some travel in June. And so there might be a couple of days in June, but I do want to get guests on the stream as well. Kind of around the theme of diversity, like either people that help promote diversity in tech or people who are diverse in tech and hear about their journeys and like get their thoughts and perspectives on things too. So that's the plan. So appreciate for being way behind on chat here. Let me catch up a little bit more. Juggling says networking in class. We have to cold reach or do coffee chats on Twitter. I'm a bit hesitant to reach out because I like to provide value first. You don't always have to provide value first. You can just ask the person, like, how can I pay it forward later? Like, I'm new at this. I appreciate your time and your help. How can I pay this forward? Like, ask their opinion. How would you like me to pay this forward? I'm sure you'll get some interesting takes on that. Coding More says there's a difference between using someone and getting a favor. If you show respect, yeah, I totally agree with that, Coding More. If you show respect and genuine appreciation for your time, you're asking for a favor. And people oftentimes... people like doing favors for others. People genuinely, I think, want to help. If they have the time and they have the energy and they have the capacity to, people genuinely, I think, want to help. If they don't have the time, they'll tell you. And so just say, like, if you've got the time, but if you don't have the time, let me know. Just that way, so one way or another, you're getting a response, even if it's like, hey, I haven't got time for this, like, maybe next week or something like that. Awesome. So yeah, the bang commands don't work because the bot's not online right now. But I just posted the Discord in there. Let me post so I'm Ian Douglas 736 on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you go pull up literally any other Twitter account, any other LinkedIn account, just put in Ian Douglas 736 and you'll get to me. Squared Mo, good to see you in chat. Could you repeat what you had lined up to talk about? Was it a podcast of people of diversity? So what I'm hoping to have as far as like people on the stream in May or June, I want to have folks on the stream who are either helping promote diversity in tech and like find out like how, like what are you actually promoting? How are you reaching audiences? What kind of impact do you actually see this making in the tech industry? Like, what kind of movement are you seeing? How is it helping? Like, how is your work actually helping diversity in tech? The other group of folks is actually having diverse people in tech on the stream. People that are not white dudes is my primary criteria. And then my secondary criteria is just not white people. And so I would like to have just more diverse guests to hear their journey and to also hear their perspectives. So if you've got questions like, yeah, I've got my ideas and my perspectives and how to build a resume, but I like having people on the stream who don't agree with me. It's totally great. I think it's amazing to have people on the stream that don't agree with me. I had Jerome Hardaway from Vets Who Code on the stream a number of weeks ago, and we didn't agree on several things. We're like, what do you think about this on a resume? And he's like, no, you should do this. I'm like, no, I think you should do this. And like, we were kind of going back and forth on it, not in an argumentative kind of way. We were being super respectful about it. But during the stream, we're like, this is amazing that everybody that's watching the stream or watching the video later, they get to see all these different perspectives, because there's no one right way to apply for a job. There's no one right way to create a resume. There's no one right way to build an outreach email or to build an application. There's no one, like only one way to do it. You have to listen to a lot of perspectives. You have to listen to a lot of opinions and ideas in order to form your own. And so I promote that all the time. Like, don't ever just listen to my advice. Like, whenever I do a resume review, I try to always start it with like, hey, this is my opinion. I've looked at a lot of resumes over my career, somewhere north of 15,000 resumes over my career. I've got opinions. I've got ideas on what I think makes a good resume. But if you give that to Coding More or GND or Zooey or RC Maniac, like folks that come by the channel, they're going to have thoughts and opinions too. They may agree with some of it, or they may be like, try doing this instead, or this is what I did on mine and I found it effective. You have to listen to those perspectives. You have to listen to those ideas. And then once you hear all these ideas, you say, this is how I'm going to build my resume. And now it's your resume. It's your format. It's your layout. You've chosen to do it that way. And that's the whole goal of this, is that it's not just me telling you how to do something and you go do it exactly that way. It's just me sharing my idea and perspective. And so I like having guests on the stream that can also provide differing perspectives and differing ideas, especially people that come from diverse backgrounds that I'm not going to have that level of experience. I'm not going to have experienced what they have. I'm not going to have experienced like the prejudices and the biases that they may have. And so I want to hear from their perspective, like what got you through that interview? What got you through like getting noticed, getting promoted, getting that, getting through negotiations. Like I was reading something on Twitter the other day, a lady in tech got a job offer, tried to negotiate, and the company reneged on the offer. They're like, no, we're not going to negotiate with you. We're just going to completely cancel your job offer altogether. And they were kind of devastated, and I get it. It's like, if a guy had done that, they probably would have just been told like, no, we can't match that salary. And it wasn't even a huge salary bump. They were only asking for like 8% more. And instead of saying no, they're like, no, we're just going to yank the whole job offer, because that's a prejudice that non-men get subjected to. When you negotiate, there is a chance where they're just like, no, we don't think women should stand up for themselves. And that's dumb and it's BS. And that kind of behavior in every industry needs to stop, not just tech. But in this particular case, it was a woman in tech that was trying to get a job and trying to negotiate, because we tell everybody you should negotiate for yourself. And in this case, she did and got an offer yanked. It's like, that's dumb. Like, I wanted to respond to the Twitter thread and be like, you need to name the company, so that, we can like not shame them, but at least, draw attention to like, hey, you probably don't want to work there. If you are a diverse member of our community, you probably don't want to work there, because you're going to be subjected to all kinds of, if that's how they're treating you as an applicant, how are they going to treat you as an employee, is how I look at it. Like how they treat you during the interview process and the job offer process, like they need to carry that level of respect all the way through that process. And if they ever get to a point where they are not respecting you, you need to walk away, because it's showing that they're not caring about you, and that's not a great place to be. Let me scroll back and chat here a little bit. Bang fix bot. Yeah, I wish it were that easy. Squared Mo, how could one be a guest? I'd love to be a part of that. Send me an email. So go to techinterview.guide. My contact info is on there. Or you can just ian.douglas@techinterview.guide. And yeah, just email me. I'd love to get to know you, or connect with me on LinkedIn. That would actually be a better approach. So let me grab my, well, you can actually see it here on the screen, but I'll paste it in chat for it anyway. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's have a chat. And Zooey, we gotta line up a date for you to be on the stream too. Juggling Biohazard, as a Hispanic man from a rough neighborhood with a non-tech family, can be difficult to keep self-motivating without having doubts. I empathize with that. I haven't had those same experiences, but I grew up in a poor household. I had to work through college to put myself through college. I went through the traditional like community college kind of thing. I got a community college diploma, and then I was immediately biased against this, like, oh, you don't have a 4-year university degree. And it's the same kind of bias that like code school grads and so on are facing nowadays. And so I deeply empathize with how hard it can be to get a job in tech where you don't follow the traditional, or what we could consider sort of the traditional path. And that's why I have this whole stream, because I want to help people get those jobs. So yeah, I mean, I say this on the stream a lot. Like, if you have self-doubt, know that everybody in this community believes in you, and we're all here to help you out. So if you ever have self-doubt, like, just come hang out with us. We'll get you pumped up. We'll feed you that motivation. If you don't have the motivation yourself, drop by chat here anytime. We'll be happy to bump you up. I see Black Deep. Good to see you in chat. What would your reaction be if a resume is in the wrong order, like oldest experience first instead of more recent? If I have to look for content on your resume, I'm more likely to pass on the resume. So for me, I like to see a skills block right at the top, because as a hiring manager, I need to know, do you have the technical skill that I need on my team? I know that I have gaps. I know that I have certain needs and certain technologies that I really hope that you have. So I want to see that right away. I want that really prominent at the top of the page. Like, give me your contact info and then give me your skills block. That's my preference, because I want to make it as easy for me to look at that resume and go, yes, I need to call this person. Or I see adjacent skills. Like, I'm looking for Python, you got Ruby. It's like, I'll put you in the maybe pile. If I can find some Python people, I'm going to call them because I'm trying to code in Python, but Ruby's close enough to Python. C# is close enough to Python. If you've got adjacent skills, I may call you if I don't find enough people with the actual technical skill that I have. But if you're putting things in reverse order, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If that first job that you had is way more applicable to what my company does than a more recent job, you're showing me that value really early on. And so again, when you're building a resume, it's really like, this is a list of facts about how I am relevant and bringing value to your company. And so I often talk like, build a big resume, trim it down to what that company cares about, and submit that as your resume when you apply for that job. Don't just build one resume and send it to everybody. It has to be tailored to the company. And so if you have a way to sort of figure out like what's in their job post, how can I sort of like tailor my resume to what they're going to care about, it's going to stand out way more to them when you apply for that job. And so being in reverse chronological order is not a bad thing if your first couple of jobs are more relevant to the next job that you want to get. I would say I wouldn't do that all the time, because people do want to kind of build that timeline of like, when did you work at jobs? And they also want to know, like, what have you done most recently? For me, I've been in the tech industry for 26 years. My first job was doing tech support. I'm not going to list that first because, like I don't really plan on going for a tech support role, although DevRel does do a bit of that support kind of thing, but that's not the primary kind of role that I want to have. And so I'm not going to promote that as heavily on every resume. And so, my first developer job was immediately following that, and I was doing firmware development, which is great if I'm applying for a low-level coding job, like working with Raspberry Pis or Arduinos, or getting into like Internet of Things and like maybe building these lights, instead of just like consuming the API, or building the API for these lights, things like that. That's what I'm especially equipped for as a developer. And so one of my jobs that I applied to back in December and January that I interviewed with was a hardware manufacturer doing Internet of Things, and they were doing like communication level, like they build cellular modems for Raspberry Pis and Arduinos. And they actually made me an offer. Like, I got through the interview process and they made an offer. because I had relevant experience, and I was able to kind of promote the older stuff from my resume that said, hey, I've got this firmware background, I've got experience doing these things, here are all the IoT projects that I've done. And so in that case, I did promote the older work that I did as opposed to the newer work. So you have to tailor that based on the company that you're applying to. Yeah, great question. I appreciate you asking that. Let me catch up on some other things. I grew up in the projects in East LA, and my motivation was to never have to have my family live that hard ever again. That's a great motivator, for sure, for sure. Seeing who else is here in chat. Just Judo, good to see you. Oh, hey, long time no see. For sure, for sure. Keep pushing. There many times when I ask myself, what am I doing here? I lucked out where people reached out and supported me. You're going to make it. Yeah. You do have to put in the time, and it is time and effort. Not everybody's got the time to put in the effort, but the more time you can give it. I've told people in the past, like, sometimes it's a sacrifice. Like it's a season in your life. It's a season in your life where you've got to make that sacrifice because there's something better on the other side. And so sometimes you just got to knuckle down, get through it 6 months, 8 months, a year, and just know, like, this year, this next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, it's going to be a hard 6, 8, 12 months. But once we get through it and you have that tech job, like, it's going to be great on the other side. But you got to, like, push through it. And sometimes that's a sacrifice. Not everybody, though, has the means to do that. And so when I say that, I already recognize there's like a heavy dose of privilege in just saying, like, oh yeah, 6 months, no big deal. But for some people, like, 6 months is like life or death. Like, literally, it could be life or death. Like, I am going to run out of money in 6 months and I will be living on the street, or I will, completely run out of, money for medication or whatever that might be. It could literally be a case of life or death. And so not everybody has that kind of time to sacrifice. And I get that. But that's also why I want to build up this community of people that can help, and people that can network, and people that can help you apply for jobs or give you referrals for jobs. My company right now, I don't think we have a referral program, but I'm referring people to jobs that we have open at Postman. It's like, yeah, come work at Postman. It's a great company. We've got a ton of diversity. We've got a whole team of people just focusing on diversity, and that makes me feel great. And I lurk in their channel because I don't want to be a white dude, like, spouting opinions on how to be diverse. I'm just there to listen to them talk about how we as a company are going to be diverse. So I'm just, like, there to absorb, what they chat about. It's a great company. We got engineering roles open. We got dev roles open. So yeah, please go apply. And if you want help applying, reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me your resume, send me a cover letter, all that kind of stuff. And let me know how I can help you get into the company. Let's see what else is going on in chat. Zooey says, I'm trying to put together a mic and a desk for better work and stream setup. Okay, cool. Just catching up. Zooey got his first paycheck. All right. Love it. It's life-changing money. Yeah, for sure. For sure. XNOPX90. Not sure if you have a different way of pronouncing that, but thanks for dropping by. Literally dropping by. Appreciate that. You never feel 100% ready. Yeah. And you have to be okay with that, for sure. First paycheck. Yeah. Make that developer money, for sure. Just Judo. Concerning relevant job experience, what about having older jobs that have nothing to do with your current field? If your CV is otherwise having enough information, like after a field change and it's been a while? That's a great question. There's a couple of things to unpack in there. So you've been in the industry for a while, but your background is doing jobs that are not relevant or not as relevant to the kind of job you want to be applying for. So for me, for example, if my whole background was doing firmware development, but now I want to apply for front-end development, it's a very different kind of role. Some companies are going to look at your resume and go, wow, you bring a lot of experience. You bring a varied background. So yeah, let's get you on the phone because you bring a lot of just different kind of experience and perspective on things. Some companies are going to look at that and go, you're not a front-end developer, so pass. So I would say if you're trying to get a job where the kind of role that you're applying to is very different than roles that you've had in the past, you will need to demonstrate some amount of that skill as part of the tech interview process. You're going to have to demonstrate something. You're going to have to do a little bit of code or a take-home assignment or something where you're demonstrating like, yeah, I really do understand, in my example, like I do understand JavaScript and I've learned a little bit of React. You may have to demo that during the interview process. And so I would say if those are the kinds of roles that you're going to apply to, or whatever the role is, start building out some little projects. They don't have to be huge, but start building out little projects that can demonstrate your use of that technology or that you've got an interest in that. Because to submit a resume or a CV where you don't have relevant skill for the job that you're applying to, like maybe you've got the programming language, but you don't have a particular like framework or, whatever they're actually doing with that technology. Or you don't have that specific database. You need to show relevance. Like, oh, you want Postgres experience and all my background is MySQL. I mean, from my point of view as a hiring manager, I'm like, they're like 90% the same, maybe 80% the same. But like, they're similar enough that if you know SQL syntax, you're going to get along fine. It's just, you've got to learn a different ORM or something to talk to the database, and that's no big deal. Like, we can train you on that stuff. We'll support you in that stuff. No big deal. But if it's like, I've never used any relational database, I've only ever done like MongoDB, it's like, at least you've done some database stuff. So you understand what it means to store records and retrieve records. And so it's not as ideal, but it's still a consideration. You'd probably go on my maybe pile. But if you're like, I've never used any database at all, it's like, it's a big chunk of what we do here, so I'm less likely to call you. But if you can say like, hey, I don't have a background working in databases, so I'm specifically working on these projects specifically to highlight how I'm learning different kinds of databases and how I'm interacting with them and doing, whatever with them. Inserting data, retrieving data, across multiple tables with joins and things like that. Now you're showing them that you're taking time to go learn those technologies specifically because you want that job. That's going to stand out to them. And so having some projects, and this goes back to like the very first question that I asked on that I was asked on the stream of like, how do I build out a portfolio that's going to stand out to a company? It's the same kind of theme. You need to know what that company cares about, and you need to build projects about what they care about. Now, you're not just going to apply to one job and build projects for that one job, because if you don't get that job, it's going to feel like you're starting all over again. And so you do want to find multiple companies encompassing multiple technologies and see if you can combine a bunch of that stuff. Like if you are going to apply for a front-end developer job and a back-end developer job and you need some database experience, well, go build a full stack application with a database, and you can use that same project to highlight to all three of those companies and say, this is how I built out the React portion. Yeah, I built out some back-end stuff, but I know that you care about what I did on the front end, so here's the front-end portion of what I did. You're the back-end company. Here's what I built on the back end. It's like, I consume it in this React thing if you want to go check it out, and here's how I built out the database, but here's how I built the API layer on the back end that your company cares about. And then for people that are doing the database stuff, it's like, yeah, I built this whole full stack thing, and here's how I'm interacting with your database. Like, you're going to highlight those skills in a different way as you're applying to each of those jobs, but you built one project that encompassed all of that. And so as you're researching companies and trying to think of project ideas, see if you can combine different bits and pieces, like mash them together and build fewer bigger projects as opposed to, dozens of like little tiny projects that only take like an afternoon to do. Build a project that takes a couple of days to build that includes like different components, different APIs, and show, kind of that overall value that you bring. Because there is going to be a demonstration portion of the interview where you are going to have to demonstrate that you know that skill. But to even get noticed by them, you're probably going to have something demonstratable or demonstrable to them that you can say like, I have done some of this. It's not my primary skill, but I am capable of doing it, and here's how I'm applying that. So that would be my 2 cents there. Zooey and Just Judo are chatting about paychecks, and Zooey says, I was a chef for the past decade before I made the switch. You can cater your strengths from previous jobs to what the company's looking for. Yeah, for sure. And I've said on the stream too, when I worked at Turing, it's the school that I taught at, Turing School of Software and Design in the Denver area. We actually did some employer roundtables where we had employers come in and we would ask them like, what kind of background do you appreciate most? Like, because the people that come to Turing are typically doing career change. What kind of background really stands out? And their number one thing was, we like people that come from food service industry because they've worked in high pressure. They've worked with sort of front of house, rear of house. Like, they've worked across lots of teams. They have to have good communication. They have to be on time. They have to have good discipline. They've got to interact well with customers. Like, there's so many, what we would call soft skills that you bring, and not just the technical, like, oh yeah, I happen to know JavaScript, or I happen to know Python, or I happen to know C#, or I happen to know Java. You're bringing a lot of other background. And so those are also things that you need to highlight on your resume and your cover letter and talk about in your interview of, I'm bringing more to the company than just the hard technical skill that you want. Like, yes, I meet the criteria, or enough of the criteria from the job post where I felt confident to apply for the job, but I'm also bringing all of these additional skills to the team. Highlight those skills, because sometimes that will really set you apart and differentiate you against other people that are applying for that job. Just Judo says, I think my business experience is probably worth to mention if I change fields. I just don't really like a lot of CV pages. Yeah. And most recruiters don't want more than like 2 pages. So even with CV format, so the European curriculum vitae CV is, from what I've seen in the past, much longer. Like, I've seen CVs that are like 10 plus pages long, because you're literally highlighting every single thing and giving like a full page breakdown of like, this is every little thing I did at this job and all the different technologies, because they want to research all of that to know if they're even going to call you. But lately that has also shifted. I think a lot of European recruiters, and I've actually chatted with a European recruiter from London who works at Postman. We had a long conversation about recruiting, and I asked him straight up, is like, hey, like, what do you look for in a resume or a CV? And he's like, I just want to find value. Like, I want to be able to know, when I look at this thing, does this person meet the criteria that I'm looking for? Because I need to find that quickly. And I'm like, funny you should mention that. I say the same thing over here in America. And so I sent him a copy of my 2-page resume. And he's like, this is brilliant. He goes, this is exactly what I would want to see. You're showing me really relevant skill. You're showing me how you bring value to the company, all on page 1. Page 2 is all like, these are other things that I've been involved in. But page 1 is like, here's what I bring to your company. And he's like, I wish more people did that. And I'm like, well, I'm trying. I'm on a live stream. I'm trying to tell people this is what to do. And so I think even in European countries, I think keeping it to 2 pages, where page 1 is like, here's the direct impact and value I bring to your company, and page 2 is like, here are other things that I think you need to care about. And so I kind of described to Tony what my process is of like, build a giant resume, trim it back down, and he's like, that's great advice. So spread the word, tell people about that. I think that it's a good way to really customize the resume for a specific company that shows the immediate value you bring. And I think that that's what's going to make you stand out. Excuse me. I think that's what's going to make people stand out a lot more. Juggling Biohazard says, Ian, I think you mentioned in a past stream being able to do a one-on-one resume review. Yep. How much is it? I typically charge $50. And what you do is you submit the resume to me the same way that you would normally submit the resume. So let me get that link in here. We'll figure out what this timeout is on the bot here in a minute. I'm just having fun answering questions. So if you want to submit a resume, send it to this link, and just mention in the comment block that you want a private review. And we can either hop on a Zoom call, or I can just do a recording. And typically the recording is like half hour, 45 minutes, and I charge $50 for that. And again, all of that money is going into this diversity thing where I'm like paying out 100% of that money. I'm not keeping a dime of that money. And so subscriptions, bits, cheers, donations, whatever on the channel here, great. It's all going into that same pool of money where I'm giving it all away for diversity. So, it may not be Turing, but Turing's mission is primarily around diversity. But I do want to find other people, because I've supported Turing a ton. I've given them like tons of money in the past, and other ways of like supporting their mission. I want to find other groups whose missions are to promote diversity in tech. And so if you have suggestions, send them over on Discord, or chat them here for me to see as well. I would love other suggestions on where I can donate this money as well. My preference is that they are a registered charity group, not so much from the tax purpose, but that I know that they're being, they're doing like good things with the money, that, I can see transparency about like, if I give you $100, Are you keeping 90 of it and like $10 is going to diversity, or vice versa? Those are things that I look for. So I would prefer someone who is a registered, charitable organization where I can see some transparency about how they use the money, because I want to make sure that it's the right sort of use of that money, and how they use that money. And then, yeah, I will happily donate 100% of those proceeds. What are your thoughts on ageism with entry-level tech jobs? That's a great question too. Ageism is definitely a thing in tech. People will discriminate against you for all kinds of reasons, and you won't always know why. For me, I definitely faced ageism in this job hunt that I did a couple of months ago. People are like, "Oh, you've been doing this a long time." Yeah, thanks, but no thanks, because they think you either want a ton of money. And it's like, "Oh, you've been doing this for 26 years. You probably want like $1 million salary." I'd be like, "I'd love $1 million salary, but I'm not going to ask for $1 million salary." Or they're just going to think like, "Oh, you're just old and you're not going to be able to learn new technologies." And so a lot of pitching in the job hunt was, these are things I'm learning. I'm studying for cloud certifications. I'm learning, a program on React so I can get, not that I want to be a React developer, but I'm learning, like I'm constantly learning new things all the time. Like, I'm relearning IRC, to kind of build out this chatbot that we see over here in this window, and how the IRC interaction happens and things like that. So, I'm constantly learning. When you're in tech, you have to constantly learn. If you go, 2-3 years and you don't learn anything new, it's going to feel like you're starting all over again. So if you are a career changer and you are 35 or older, you are going to face ageism in tech. But again, if you can show the value that you bring to a company and say, yeah, I'm a little bit older, but I've got all of this other experience. This is all of the other stuff that I'm bringing to this job. Besides being new as a developer, I bring experience in this background, that background, experience with this, that. You need to show that other experience. And so they don't need to worry as much about like, oh, you're going to ask for an enormous salary. You can say, no, I still want like entry level developer salary, maybe a little bit extra, because I am bringing a lot of extra background and I do bring a lot of extra skill. Like I'm coming in with discipline and maturity. Like I'll help you word that stuff. I'm happy to help people word those kinds of things, because I've faced it myself. Let me keep going through chat here. Just Judo says, I'm in the EU and they say 1 page, 2 page max here too. That's great. I think it's good. It forces you to really focus on, this is the value that I bring, and not just like, here's every dang thing I've ever done and every language I've ever learned and every little like to-do tutorial I've ever done. Like no one's got time to read through all that. Companies are in a hurry to hire. It's expensive to hire. They want to do it as fast as possible. And that's why you start seeing more and more companies with referral programs of like, hey, employees, if you know somebody that, would be good at this job, please tell us, because we would rather just hire a referral and get them in the door faster and start making an impact, and then, pay you a little bit of that money instead. Cool. Juggling Biohazard says, I'll send you Whisper when I get your CV ready. Yeah, just send it over the email. I'll get the email notification. I check that account every day. So I'll see it come over there. I've got another one to do that is, they submitted it as a public review, but they left all their contact information on there. So I need to contact them and say, did you really mean to do that? Because they were highlighting, so it was somebody whose resume that we reviewed last year. And they got their first job in tech, which was amazing. Not just because of my advice. Through collection of listening to lots of ideas and perspectives, they were able to get their first job in tech. Yay, high five for them. And now they've come back and said, hey, now that I've got my first job, how should I be revamping my resume? Not that they're looking for another job, but just how do I prepare my resume? Like, how do I start preparing the stuff on a resume that when I do want to apply for another job, how do I keep track of skills and so on? And so they were kind of blocking out on the resume, like, do I highlight this? Do I highlight this? And so I need to contact them back and say like, hey, like, let's chat a little bit more about what your expectation is for a resume review. Because I don't want to pull it online and like dox the person and show off their phone number and email address and all that kind of stuff. So, so if you're watching this video later on, please resubmit as an anonymized resume. I'd be happy to do that on the stream. But if you want to chat about it privately too, I'm happy to do that. I'm going to hydrate for a moment, since none of you can tell my bot to remind me to hydrate. All right, so let's go see what's going on with this timeout error sitting here. Coding More just outed himself. I left it on there on purpose. Your phone number and email were hopefully changed. All right, well, let me go back and double check. It was Coding More. So let me go see if I still have that open in a browser. And nice, open. Okay. Well, you left your name on there. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, your phone number and email are fine. But you did leave your real name on there. So as long as that's cool, I'm happy to take a look at that while we're here. Cool. All right. Yeah, let's dive in on that. So let me go find a browser, and that is going to be Chrome for RM Anon. Oh, that did not scale well. Let me go. Nope, that's not what I want to grab. I want this. Is that the right thing? Yeah. All right, let me fix this. Sorry, apologies for not having this completely ready to go here. Stretch this out so we can all read it a little better. Then we'll zoom in on it a bit here. It did stretch it a tiny bit. There we go, that's better. All right. So let me go back to the email. So I previously had my resume reviewed by you, landed my first job in tech. Yeah. Now that I've been a professional developer for a few months, I think it's high time my resume is updated so I'm ready for any new opportunities to come my way. I've taken my resume, added new content highlighted in gray, but this obviously pushes a bunch of content onto a second page. What should I remove to keep things to a single page? How should my presentation shift now that I'm a professional dev and not someone trying to break into the field? Cool. Well, let's break that down a little bit. So the stuff in gray is stuff that Randall has added, but notice like, hey, that starts to bump things down onto page 2. I've also highlighted a few things in skills in red that now I feel much less confident in since I haven't touched them in almost a year. Should they be removed? Yeah, I would probably remove things where you are not actively using them. Although if it's only been a year, you'd probably get back up to speed pretty quickly on them. So Firestore, NoSQL, here's the thing. You could just pull up those old projects and just keep them up to date. Go back in, dive in, add a new sort of feature or whatever to an existing project. Say, now that I've learned this other stuff, let me go add that as a feature. Like, I learned how to activate my nanoleaf panel. So let me go add that to my to-do list, that when I add a new to-do item, it like changes another panel to a different color or something like that. Or when I mark something as done, it flashes them all green or something. Like, find a way of like tying in a current skill with an old project, because it's going to kind of keep that fresh in your mind if that's something that you want to care about. Because that's the other thing too. If you don't care ever to work again in Firestore, then take it off the resume. I don't put PHP on my resume anymore because I will not take another job where I have to write PHP code. I am loath to write PHP any longer. Although I've heard PHP 7 and 8 are way better than previous versions that I was developing in for over a decade. I will not do any other job in PHP 3, 4, or 5. They're just horrible. But that's just me. And so I don't put those things on my resume because I choose not to work in those technologies. Same with Perl. I wrote Perl for over a decade. I don't put it on my resume because I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah, I've got a decade of that as experience. If I did find a role where they're like, if you happen to know Perl, that'd be great. But like, yeah, I did like a decade of Perl, but it was like a decade ago. It's not really that relevant anymore. I'd have to go back and effectively relearn the skill. And so I would say if there's a skill on here that you don't want to practice, take it off. Stuff that's in gray are new skills. So yeah, you definitely want to keep highlighting the new things on here. So featured projects, well, now that you've worked full time, that's going to be the first thing that you put underneath your skills. Your professional experience, like your real job experience, is now going to override these projects. And so what I would probably do is start taking these older projects off, especially if they are using the technologies that you don't want to practice anymore, like Next.js, Anime.js. these were like some of these, like this project. So if that's a skill that you don't want to continue to practice, take that project off. But if you happen to find a job later that they're like, yeah, we're looking for someone that knows Next.js, you'd be like, yeah, I've got this really old project, but I haven't maintained it. I'd have to kind of get back up to speed a little bit on it. I think a lot of companies are going to be okay. That's a really cool 3D logo that just floated by. I like the shading on that. That was neat. Sorry, squirrel. And so I would take this project off completely if you choose not to use this technology, but I would probably keep it around on that long form resume where you're listing all your projects, all your tech, just in case, just in case. So your long form resume is going to have every project, every job, every skill, every library, because you don't know what is going to be needed at that next job. And getting back up to speed on something is generally faster than learning it fresh from scratch. And if you say like, oh yeah, I don't know that, I'm going to have to learn from scratch. Or if you don't list it on the resume, they're going to go, oh, we need someone with Next.js experience and that's not on your resume. So you're going to have to learn that from scratch. That's going to be harder. Meanwhile, you actually got experience in the thing. You just chose not to put it on the resume. Does that make sense? So I would keep it on the long form resume because you never know when you're going to need it. But I would probably just put a little note in the long resume saying when you last used these things so that you can kind of get a time frame over time of like, you know what, it's been 4 years since I've used Next.js. I'm just going to take it off my long form resume because I am effectively going to have to learn it all over again. At that point, you would just remove it from the long form resume. So any new resume you build, that stuff's gone. And if someone says like, hey, do you happen to know Next.js? You'd be like, yeah, I worked on a project like 5 years ago. So I'd effectively have to start over on it. I think a lot of companies are going to respect that you've got that awareness where you know what you are capable of and what you're going to have to go back and relearn. If it's only been a year though, it's going to be kind of like riding a bike. You're going to get back up to speed on it. Okay. I don't think anything drastically changes in tech so drastically that you're effectively learning something new. It does happen from time to time, but not that often. So I would keep all this stuff on here because you never know what's going to be applicable later on. Now, things like, DaVinci Resolve and video editing and things like that, it's like, is that even going to be needed in a future job? Well, maybe. I mean, if you're going to get into like a DevRel type of role where you're like clipping little video things to make TikTok or YouTube shorts or something like that, maybe could be helpful if it's a smaller company. At Postman, I'm like, they keep saying like, Ian, you need to do more video. I'm like, oh, I'm really bad at video editing. And they're like, Ian, we have a whole team that does video editing. You just need to make the video. Let them clip it. Let them polish it and make it look good and whatever. I'm like, okay. But I'm still nervous because I don't want to give them like a ton of work to do. I want to like at least clip out all the ums that I say all the time. And they're like, we have a team to do this. So if the company's big enough, this skill would be irrelevant for me to put on a resume, like video editing and things like that. Like I don't have to worry about that because I've got a team that does it. But if I were to go to work at a smaller company doing DevRel where they don't have a team, that would be an applicable skill to say, hey, I know how to like do basic video editing to put together little tutorial videos and things like that. It could be helpful. So keep it on the long form resume. That would be my take. But your professional experience now should be the first thing that you list underneath your skills because you are a professional developer now. You are collecting a paycheck. Also, extend these bullet points out for every new thing you do, every new thing you learn. You're going to probably build this out to like 20 to 25 bullet points for whatever your current job is. You need to keep this long form resume up to date with as much content as possible because again, that next job, you don't know what's going to be relevant to them. So you need as much information in a place where you can remember it. Because if you go back, like, let's say you stay at this job for 2 years, 3 years, and then you go apply for another job. Well, when you go apply for that other job, you're like, wait, what was that project that I did like the first 6 months, on that job? I know that there was something really cool that I built. Can't remember what it was now. It's gone. Especially if you start losing GitHub access to things that you did, at a company when you leave a company. Like, let's say this job is like 2 or 3 jobs ago and you're like a decade into your career. You're like, I worked on that really cool project one time. I can't remember what it was now. Or you're just going to completely blank and be like, I worked there for 3 years. What did I do? So having all this stuff in one place where you can keep track of all this stuff is really, really helpful. So keep tons of bullet points. Every time you learn something new, build something new, get it on this long form resume. And then trim the bullet points down to only what that next company is going to care about because you're showing the immediate value that you bring. So I would list that professional experience first. This other stuff as an intern, I would keep that on there. Having the video editor, again, if it's relevant to a future company, keep it on there. If it's not relevant to them, take it off. So that's where you want to like show those kinds of alignments in there. And then because this stuff does spill over into a second page, that's fine. When you go to apply for a new job, you could probably trim it back down to one page, or if you're building up a lot more bullet points about what you're doing at this current job, and you're going to start giving them fewer projects, you could put all your projects on page 2 and just show like relevant work, relevant projects, and then page 2 is like other work, other projects. You could kind of expand it out that way. So there's lots of sort of direction that you can go with that. I want to catch up on chat here because I saw a bunch of stuff fly by. Just Judo says, when starting a new work, I always have a notebook where I write down all my tasks and learning them. I have the same. I bought an orange notebook just for Postman, put a bunch of their stickers on it. And I've got like other notebooks and stuff here. Like I keep just a scratch notebook where I keep track of things like, juggling biohazard has tile number 13, on the back wall now. But then I've got like other notebooks where I keep track of certain things, and that can be helpful too, as long as you don't lose the notebook. But if you put this stuff in a Google Doc and you maintain access to that Google account, you're always going to have access to that thing. Just don't lose access to your Google account. But however you want to keep track of that stuff is important. So I see a lot of people use Polywork for this kind of thing, but that does make it public. But if that's okay for you to say like, hey, I did this thing at work, then you can always go back to Polywork and go grab that whole history too, provided they stay online for a long time. That's the other thing too. When you give other people your data, you hope they're going to stick around. Like Google's not going to get rid of Google Docs anytime soon. But Polywork could go away in 5 years. Maybe they get bought by somebody and they shut it down. Like, who knows? And so, and then where does all that data go? Or if you put it on Notion and Notion gets bought or it gets shut down or goes out of business, like, where does all that data go? Hopefully they have a way for you to export it, but now you've got to maintain that on somewhere, and you got to make sure it's backed up in a cloud. Do you put it on Dropbox? Do you put it on box.net? Like, do you put it on Evernote? Like, where do you keep track of this stuff, right? You don't know who's going to have access to it. You have to worry about security, blah, blah, blah. But that's like future you kind of problem. But like, keep track of this stuff somewhere, whether it's in a hard notebook and hope you don't lose the notebook or something catastrophic doesn't happen to your house. Whatever that is, like, you got to keep track of this stuff somewhere, somehow, because to go back like 5 years later and be like, yeah, I think I'm ready for a new job. Let me try to recap what I've been doing for 5 years. You're going to come up with like 5 bullet points of like, I worked on this major project and that major project, and here's some of the most recent tech stack stuff that I've done. And you're going to forget a lot of this detail. So you got to write it down somewhere, somehow. So that's also why I encourage this long form resume. Keep track of everything on there, because when you go apply for the job, you don't know what's going to be relevant to that company until you research the company and see their job post and go, oh, you know what? I should have talked about the video editing, on that resume. Then it'll be there. Let's see. Icy Black Deep says, I never thought looking back was a normal trait for a pro programmer. Yeah, fair. A while back, I printed out all of my old performance reviews so I'd have a clue of what I did if I need to update my resume. That's a good thing to do too. Again, if you have access to that, but once you leave a company, you may not have access to that anymore. And so you have to keep track of that somewhere else. Like when I left SendGrid, I worked there for 4 years, and on my resume, I'm like, well, these were like the major projects that I worked on. But then I actually found a SendGrid resume that I was applying for another job at SendGrid, and they're like, well, we need you to put a resume together and show your value to that team and whatever. I'm like, really? I've been working here for years and I have to apply for the job? All right. So I basically put together like, here's every little nitty gritty thing I've done at the company, and I submitted that because I was kind of joking with HR. I'm like, can my resume just be like, I've worked here for 4 years? Like, isn't that enough? But I actually built out this other separate PDF of like, these are all the individual projects, and I had gone through like all the GitHub repos and found my contributions and impact and things like that. And I had kept a copy of that resume, and I forgot that I kept a copy. And so when I was on this job hunt in December and January, I'm like, oh, I got to go back and fill all this stuff out and try to remember what I did at all these jobs. I went through my Google Drive, and I'm like, what was this SendGrid resume? And I pulled it up and I'm like, oh, look at all this cool stuff I did at SendGrid that I'd completely forgotten about. Built out this whole authentication system API that I'd completely forgotten that I had done. Completely forgotten. Maybe it was PTSD, I don't know. But I had completely forgotten that I'd built this thing out, and I had listed a bunch of bullet points to refresh my own memory of what I had done at that for that particular little project. I'm like, oh yeah, totally forgot I had done that. And so I put it on the resume of like, I've built an auth system, in this API format, this microservice kind of thing to manage permissions across multiple other services and whatever. And I was able to speak to it in a couple of interviews. And so you got to keep track of that stuff somewhere. Otherwise, you're going to forget. Take it from a guy who forgets. This guy forgets all the time. Who's got two thumbs and forgets? This guy. So yeah, you got to keep track of that somewhere. Just Judah says, I don't know, I trust notebooks more. Yeah, for sure. Juggling Biohazard says, almost had a fire next door. The first thing I grabbed were my shoes and my notebooks. Yeah, and I know some people that keep fireproof safes just exactly for that reason. Like the most vital stuff they need to keep goes in there, like passports and, important papers and things like that. You got to keep track of this stuff somewhere. I like using cloud providers and like keeping copies on multiple cloud providers. I actually had a project idea years ago of, if anybody here knows what a RAID is, it's a random array of inexpensive disks, RAID. And there's a way that you can set them up to like mirror data or do what we call striping, where like some of the data is stored on here and some of it's stored on here. And so if you only get access to one, you only get part of the data. And I was trying to think, what if we could build a RAID layer on top of cloud providers? So you've got Google Drive, you got Box.net, you got Dropbox, you got Evernote, you got all these places where you can store data. What if we could build a software layer on top of that as a RAID, where when you put a file on there, it automatically maps it and copies it onto all of them or stripes it. So if one gets compromised, they only get some of the data. I think something like that could have a lot of value. So if anybody wants $1 billion idea, there you go. I get royalties though. If you go build it and make $1 billion, you owe me lunch. But that would be one way to copy that data to more than one source and know that you're going to maintain that source. But then also have a way of like access it from multiple email accounts. So if you lose access to one email account, you still have access to it from another. Like, you'd have to figure out some sort of sharing permission on that kind of stuff. But that would be a fun little project to build. What about listing jobs that ended badly on a resume from extreme to not too extreme circumstances? So anybody that's listened to my stream will know that I say this a lot. If you have a story to tell, it doesn't matter. If it ended badly and you got terminated from the job, your takeaway is what you learned and how you're not going to do that again. If it ended badly because the company got shut down, then you lost your job and it wasn't your fault. And so it really depends on the circumstance of what happened. I mean, from extreme to not too extreme, I mean, the extreme thing would be like you went on a rampage, but and you got terminated because of that. Like I remember one circumstance. I was working at a company where everyone in the company was talking about like paintball and airsoft and whatever. And one guy brought his airsoft gun into the office and he was fired like the next day. And they're like, you can't bring firearms. And he's like, it was a toy gun. Everyone was asking to see it. So I brought it in and they're like, nope, can't bring that kind of stuff to the office. You're done. And it was kind of weird. It's like, okay, it felt a bit extreme. It felt like that was their excuse for getting rid of him because they wanted to get rid of him for something else. Is kind of what it felt like. I don't know if that's really what happened, but it felt like kind of a lame way to let someone go when other people were actively having conversations saying like, we would really like to see it. I think what HR said is like, if you're going to do that, and I think HR actually sent out a thing. It's like, if you want to show off like a paintball marker or something like that, like keep it in your car and have people go down to your car and see it, but don't bring it into the office because people are going to get freaked out. But I also know another company where somebody actually brought a real gun in because they had a private carry or what do they call a concealed carry permit. But then they went into the bathroom and they left it on the bathroom sink and they left it there and walked out of the bathroom and somebody else found the gun. It's like, okay, well, that's a bit much. That's like an entirely different thing because it was a loaded firearm, but they had a concealed carry permit. So they were allowed to, they just forgot and left it in the bathroom. So, but they didn't get fired. So I was like, double standard much? Fake gun gets you fired, real gun is fine? Like, weird. Anyway, yeah, good times, good times. Juggling biohazard says, sounds like a great idea. Surprisingly, there aren't a lot of private note-taking programs where you know 100% that your data won't be sold or compromised. Yeah, exactly. Just finding a random gun after washing your hands. Yeah, exactly. It would be pretty intense for sure. And of course the company had to send out a whole thing of like, please don't bring a firearm. If you have a concealed carry, that's fine, but like, please talk to HR if you really feel the need to carry. But like, you know, we promote a safe workplace, so you shouldn't have to bring it. You know, bizarre. Anyway, so yeah, so that would be, so Randall, that was my take on your resume. I know that I kind of went like way off topic on a bunch of things there, but hopefully that was helpful. Let's go back to the bot. Let's see what's going on with this bot. Why are my kids like fighting and stomping around upstairs? All right, this window got stretched out in weird ways. So we had some kind of timeout error happen here when we're trying to connect to Twitch. So it eventually timed out. It took a long time to time out. I started running this at 11:54. Oh, I didn't cancel it right away, so I don't know how long it actually took to time out to get here. All right, so client connect done, defined, it got a timeout error in the client.py line 173. And then it's showing us a stack trace of like where it actually got hung up. So it threw an exception as a timeout error from a none object. So that makes me think it was some kind of authentication error and it just timed out trying to connect, but this has been working just fine. Let's try it again. Nope, still not gonna work. All right, I'll figure out the bot later on. Coding More says, what about education? Oh, does that section matter more or less than projects? I would say it's going to matter less. As you have professional experience, your education is going to matter less. I would definitely keep that on page 2. There are companies out there that care about very prominent education systems. And so if you've gone to like an MIT or a Stanford or something, you would put that on page 1 right under your skills, because those companies bias towards people that work for, or that come from schools where they care. Again, those are companies that I don't want to work at. If you're going to actively promote bias and prejudice against people, then I don't want to work at your company. And that tends to be like FANG companies. They tend to, well, more so on like Facebook, I think is probably the worst offender. They if you go to Stanford, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a call from a Facebook recruiter and like get an internship kind of thing. Or it feels that way at least. Or like Georgia Tech or MIT, like the really well-known like CS programs in the country. You're way more likely to get a phone call from them. When it comes to like coding school programs and background like that, I would say now that you've got professional experience, they're going to care a little bit less about where you went to school and what you've learned, and they're going to care a lot more about what you do at your current job. And so again, that's why your current job, you're going to want a lot of bullet points to explain all the different things that you've done and how you've gotten involved and what you've learned and projects that you've been building. They're going to care a lot more about that than your projects and your education over time. And so that stuff can start to get bumped down onto page 2. I would say for you, I would keep the education on page 2 and not on page 1. It's okay to keep it on there, but I would definitely keep it down to page 2 at that point. So in order of sections, skills, work experience, projects, education, and customize the resume. That's how I would do it for you, yes. Because you went to a coding school boot camp kind of thing, you can bump that education down onto page 2. And any recruiter looking at that going, okay, well, page 1 is like skills and current experience and then maybe some relevant projects. If they care to know like where you learned it, they're going to keep reading onto page 2 anyway, and then they'll see the education. At that point, they've already seen all of the relevant experience and the value that you bring to the company, which has nothing to do with your education. I mean, it does, because your education has gotten you to where you are. But the immediate value you bring to the company is where you're currently working and what you're currently working on, what your current skill set is. That's going to matter to them a lot more. Cool. Wow. 2 hours went by in a hurry. How's it been 2 hours already? cool. I'm going to actually wrap up. I got to take care of some stuff. I got some chores to do, and I got to do my shopping for the week and meal prep and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for hanging out today, everybody. Appreciate it. I don't know why my chatbot's not working. I'm going to like tear it down and rebuild it. I have a feeling it has something to do with my authentication, but we'll tinker with that as we go. But yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the resume, Randall. Appreciate letting me re-review your resume on there. And if you've got other questions, please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat with you anytime on that. And that kind of goes for everybody. If you've got questions that you didn't want to ask on stream, you're welcome to DM me. I will get the chatbot back up and running where you can ask anonymously. And like I said, I do want to get it plugged into Discord where anonymous questions, so you can come to Twitch at any time and send a message to the chatbot or whisper to the chatbot, and it'll send it over to Discord. Just that way you feel safe submitting things anonymously. I would love to have a way to do that with Discord where you can like upload the resume to Discord as well and have that submit anonymously there, or tie in the email that if I get an email, it can like forward it to Discord or something like that. I want to figure out as much automation as I can to make you all feel as safe as possible to ask questions, ask for resume reviews and things like that. So we'll gradually whittle away at that over the summer, and we'll see where we get in the fall. In the meantime, please tell folks to come by. I do really want to build up this community and have people help each other out and share their experiences and share their background and stuff like that. So definitely help me out there. Let's go find somebody to raid if there's anybody else online right now. Let's go see who's online. Let's not play my audio. Let's see who's online. Heathen is doing some stuff. GBAB is doing some gaming. Nobody doing any coding. Anybody got anybody that we can go raid? Anybody got any favorites? CM Griffin is online. Building an app to figure out who to raid. That's always cool. I love people that are building other bots, but they are currently actually offline, so never mind. RWX Rob, I've rated them a bunch in the past. Timbo Day, just doing stuff, anything's possible. What are they up to?
Camera 1, comma.
They're doing some stuff with cameras, it looks like. Yeah, let's go raid them. Somebody new. So we'll go raid Timbo Day. At least I presume that's how they pronounce their name. We're going to find out. So we'll go raid over to them. We'll see you all on Thursday. I will be back Thursday night. And we'll see you then. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll catch you all next stream.